Taka Taka Zero is a Nairobi-based social enterprise tackling three pressing issues in Kenya's informal settlements: waste management, youth unemployment, and food insecurity. Through innovative technology, the organization transforms non-recyclable waste into sustainable energy, which is then used for cooking and boiling water. I recently spoke with Liti and Freya, two Durham University students who lead the project. Our conversation was recorded remotely, and I began by asking them how it all started.
Lati, do you want to take this?
So actually it all started a bit before Freya and I. So we had two founders and one of them grew up in Kenya, hence why we're based in Nairobi. She grew up there. And the other one grew up in India, and they both had a real passion for waste management and seeing how informal settlements really struggled with these large piles of waste that were just polluting the environment and ultimately causing quite a few health problems for kind of the local residents. So they founded it, and then Freya and I joined in 2023 summer, 2023 summer. And from then have kind of taken over the day-to-day operation. And we've both, lucky enough, I've been out to Kenya twice and Freya's been out once. And kind of the project's grown. So like our mission statement says, we bake bread on it, but we also now boil porridge and provide food for the Mathare, which is the informal settlement where we're based, the Mathare inhabitants.
Did they understand that they needed help, or?
Yeah, I think the Mathare community were very aware of this. I think from talking to our employees and other people in Mathare, I think we've kind of learned that the people in Mathare have this real drive to make a change to the informal settlement and to the climate as a whole, but they don't necessarily have the support to do so. And I think that that's how Lati and I really describe Taka Taka, is that the work is done by the people in Mathare, and we're more of this supporting mechanism, both financially, but in terms of decision making as well. So I think they definitely knew that this was something they needed to pursue and wanted to pursue. And the main youth group we work with, Downtown Youth Group, our team leader in Kenya, Felix, had already organised this youth group, and they were already collecting waste before Taka Taka was started. So yeah, I think definitely.
Did they receive you well to start? Or?
Yeah, I think Downtown and like other youths were in the waste collection industry, but they just had nothing to do with the waste. So that's where Taka Taka Zero has come in, and we utilise this innovative technology, the community cooker, and we've given a kind of cyclical approach rather than just collecting the waste and then dumping it somewhere else. It's now able to be converted into energy that can then be used in more productive ways. And so I think that's been received really well in terms of helping them kind of reach one of their goals.
And how about the impact?
I think that one of the greatest things about our project is that the impact is so multifaceted. So I think probably the most obvious impact would be in terms of proper waste management and clearing waste from the environment. We've got some brilliant videos and pictures of what dump sites look like before Taka Taka and what they look like now, and it's just amazing to see the difference. But I also think that we have a huge impact on youth unemployment and providing employment for people. I think Mathare, it's a very difficult community to find stable employment in, so we definitely make impact in terms of that. And then we also arguably make impact in terms of food insecurity. So we've just started selling a nutritious Kenyan porridge called Uji Power alongside our bread, and that's really high in nutrients, so it's a really good source of food for the Mathare inhabitants. So I think those are probably the three key areas of impact that we have.
Amazing. And have you seen changes in the community's perception of waste?
Yeah, I think
produce more waste so that you can burn more?
No, but we are now getting more waste because people are now kind of transitioning to giving us the waste directly rather than putting it on a dump site. I also think there are other groups within Mathare. We've actually just partnered with another group who are collecting independently and then now giving us their waste for free to dispose of in an environmentally friendly way.
So you said waste for free. How does it work? Do you pay for people to collect, or?
Well, actually, so this youth group we've partnered with, they have independently of us, we only found out about them recently, they've created these large bins in Mathare to try and stop the waste just going onto landfill. They've created these bins. These bins were initially just being taken out to a dump site slightly further out, but instead the waste is now going to us and we're using it to fuel the cooker. And so we're not having to pay for that waste, because waste is, it may sound bizarre, like sitting in the UK, but waste is quite a financial, it's a business there. But because they see the great impact we're doing and they're also passionate about the Mathare community, we're getting that for free and we're able to then utilize it to create the food and maintain our business.
And what aspect of the project's impact are you most proud of?
I don't know if this is necessary. I think it does tie into impact. I think I'm most proud of the impact we've made on sort of the Mathare people and community as a whole. I think in addition to sort of employment and helping them clear their community of waste, we also have really invested into upskilling them. And so, for example, recently we've had one of our employees working with our team leader in sort of an internship kind of role so that he can learn more about leadership. And I think hearing stories firsthand about the impact that Taka Taka has had on upskilling opportunities, on employment, on sort of the environment, I think that has been the bit that maybe I'm most proud of. I think definitely hearing about the impact, is really important. And that's probably my favorite
Have you
part.
both been to Kenya?
Yeah, so I've been twice, and then Freya came last summer.
Nice. Enjoyed it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's very satisfying to see kind of all the work you put in throughout the year. See it in person is like almost overwhelming. Yeah, it's amazing.
And I also think that obviously because we're based in the UK, so much of our communication is transnational, and I had basically been part of Taka Taka for an entire year before I met any of our team in person. So I think that was a really cool part about going out to Kenya, was being able to finally like connect in person with these people that I'd been talking to weekly for almost a year. So
nice. And can you explain a bit the technology? How is the oven? How does it work?
So the technology was designed in Kenya by a man called Jim Archer, and basically it incinerates waste at about 800 to 1,200 degrees. So complete combustion, and it's at about an 85% efficiency. And so this basically just generates carbon dioxide rather than methane, which is generated when the waste would decompose on landfill. And methane is about 80 times more potent than carbon dioxide. So I know we hear a lot about not releasing carbon dioxide, but in this case, it's kind of the better alternative. And as it incinerates, the heat is then transferred to some ovens and also some hot plates. So the ovens we use to bake our bread, and then the hot plates we use to boil water and also boil our ingredients for the porridge. And so that can then be sold and kind of funds the employees' wages.
And it's also important to emphasise that the incineration happens in a completely closed system so that there's zero risk of contamination when we're cooking and when we're incinerating.
And what do you do with what is left from the burning?
So then our team does maintenance once a week and clears out any of the ash to make sure that the cooker's like still functioning well. And then it also has we get like engineers to come in regularly to do a retraining on the cooker. So all of our team is trained and has certificates on how to use the technology safely, but also to ensure that the cooker's just in good working order, obviously, while we can't go and see it.
And where do you throw away the ash?
Well, this is actually something... Oh, sorry.
No, Freya, you go.
We're looking into at the moment. Anna, who was one of our founders, has got in contact with somebody who makes bricks out of ash. So that's sort of an idea we're exploring at the moment. They just need to basically test whether, I don't know about the science of it all, but basically test whether the ash has like integrity or could be used to make these bricks. But if they do, I think that would be a brilliant idea, and sort of thinking very broadly and very much into the future, there could be a way that we could make a new cooker out of the bricks that were made from this cooker, which I think would definitely be a very cool and sustainable idea.
Do you think it could be applied, the same technology could be applied here in England?
I don't know about here in England, just because I think we already have quite formalised waste management systems, and also in terms of whether I think communities would react well to it. Like, I don't think there's necessarily the same need as there is in these informal settlements. But in terms of, I think it definitely could be used across Kenya and across other countries with informal settlements or issues with waste management. We've had some interest from Bangladesh, for example, but also other counties in Kenya. And probably that's our first step, is to stay in Kenya for expansion and then internationally one day.
Yeah, I think one of the reasons it works so well is because the community really want a solution to this and are so willing to come together to make it work. And I think that even though we probably do have a waste management issue in the UK, it's not as visible in a community. You don't go to a village and there's a dump site there. So I think that's probably the main difference and a reason why it wouldn't work.
And which role do each of you play?
We are both team leaders, and then we have a third team leader called Kim, and we kind of split our responsibilities weekly to balance it all, but we kind of oversee like the expansion strategy, but also just the daily operations. And then we have someone who works in marketing at Durham, and then we have two who also do our finances.
And then recently the two girls who founded it have sort of become more involved on the expansion side, and thinking about how we can grow in the next, 5 to 10 years. And so we've now sort of taken on, Letty, I and Kim have all taken on some responsibility in looking at expansion as well as running the day-to-day operations.
Great. And how are you balancing schoolwork and Taka Taka work and Enactus work?
I think it's fair to say it's definitely a challenge. We're both now in our final year of university, and I think the workload increasing, but also wanting to make the most of it being your last year at university and kind of doing your sport, doing your extracurriculars, it's definitely a challenge, but I think that's why having 3 team leaders really works. And I also think the Kenyan team are amazing and are really good at kind of understanding if we're going to respond a day late or having kind of last minute meetings. So
yeah,
I think it's definitely a challenging balance, but one that we all work together, so it works.
Yeah. I also think it's a really good experience to learn how to manage your time. Like, I think that because the community we work with has a lot of struggles, we also know how important it is that while they are like very relaxed with us responding and things like that, there are occasions where it is really important for us to be on time and get things through on time. So I think, yeah, it's been really helpful to learn how to sort of juggle my work with things like that.
Very good. What have you learned with this journey? What do you think you wouldn't have learned otherwise?
I have some. I think maybe I think I kind of knew already, but I think having the actual experience of it makes a difference about learning how sort of important transnational cooperation is and how much that can help foster new ideas and innovations. I think very often our ideas have sort of grown out of conversations from both sides, from the Durham side and the Nairobi side. And I think that that's a very cool thing to see, because you see it on a large scale all the time through like the UN and sort of transnational organisations like that, but also to see it on a small scale and to know that as a student you can do that has been really cool.
Amazing. And did you initially have to secure some funding? How did you build the first oven?
So the first kind of the pilot and the first few years of operations were mostly done through fundraising, but also some grant funding, and kind of, I think Anna, our founder, won a grant that allowed her to go out to Kenya for the first 3 months and kind of set up the pilot. And then we were lucky enough at the end of this 2023 summer to secure quite a large grant, a lot of which is ring fence for expansion and for when we're ready to go to a second site. But that's allowed us at least to take the pressure off like having to fundraise in terms of bake sales sort of things.
Who is funding you at the moment?
The Ford Family Foundation gave us a grant.
The Ford, okay.
And that happened after Enactus Nationals in 2023. Yeah, after the 23 Nationals.
Amazing. You can't survive on funding on donations forever, right?
Exactly.
Is there a plan there, or?
This
is probably the challenge we're like most focused on at the moment, is making our Mathare site financially sustainable and kind of perfecting the business model around that. So we've opened our kiosk quite less recently now, but still quite recently, and that's been that sells our uji porridge, and that's been profitable. So that's been really helping our kind of subsidize the bread baking business that currently isn't sustainable. But also, Freya can probably take over from me, we started looking into expanding to new markets. So currently all of our products are sold in Mathare, which is a really important focus for us and we want to keep, because food insecurity and tackling that is a really key kind of impact that we want the project to have. But at the same point, we can't really increase the price in Mathare because there's just not the market there. So we have been looking into targeting expat markets potentially within Kenya, or going outside of informal settlements. So one avenue we've been pursuing is potentially making jam and selling that at various markets.
Yeah, so I think we've had a big think over the past year about what other kind of products we can make, and we've thought of things like tea, but the profit margins on that aren't really big enough, especially in Mathare, because in an area as economically precarious as Mathare, you just can't sell it for enough for us to make a profit. Whereas jam at the moment seemed like a really good option. It's relatively cheap to make, it's just fruit and sugar and water. And the team have been trialling it on the cooker for the past 2 weeks. So they made one pineapple jam and one mango jam, and it's worked really well on the cooker, and it's been quite quick to make. And I think that that's quite a marketable product probably to expat communities if we were selling it in sort of more expat farm shops and markets and things like that. But then alongside that is obviously the challenge that one of our big commitments and one of the ways we make impact is by working in the Mathare community. So I think going forward, we've got to be really careful to try and balance the making profit in other markets and expat communities, but also still remaining very committed to Mathare.
So you are both in your final years, and what's going to happen when you leave Enactus and university? Will someone else take over? Are you going to start a company, a business, and take Taka Taka with you? What is coming next?
I think this is kind of up for the debate at the moment. I think it's a big conversation we're having as a team. I think currently we're not feeling confident to spin out of Enactus just yet. So the plan is the majority of our team is in their final year. Somewhat one of the finance boys is not, so he still will be in Durham. But I think the current plan is to try and onboard a few new team members this year, so we are not kind of forced to leave Enactus before we necessarily feel ready. I think it's fair to say none of us are ready to give up Taka Taka Zero. I think we definitely all want to stay in, at the very least, an advisory role, if not more hands-on, a bit like the founders currently are. Kind of our board members are like advisors. So I think that's currently the plan, but it's all a bit up for debate at the moment. I think it's quite dependent on how much progress we can make in this year.
Amazing. It's important to think about, continuity, business continuity. We always say, okay, if you get hit by a bus, what would happen? When you are a business owner or you have a high position. And it's important that you don't have a single point of failure, and the load is distributed. So the fact that there are already 2 people or 3 that are leaders is a good thing. But the fact that you are all leaving university together, that's a risk. So you need to assess that risk, I think, and mitigate it somehow. And I think you are on the right path, trying to onboard new students. And is it being easy?
So
I think,
I think we're aiming to sort of start the onboarding after Christmas time, so that we've kind of got a 6 months before we would leave. And as we said, we're all still very passionate about the project and still want to be involved after we graduate. So I don't think it would necessarily be like we find somebody new and then we leave. But I think that maybe that once people learn more about Taka Taka, I think it's very easy. I think it's an incredible project. People are very interested in the multifaceted side of it, at least definitely for myself. Like, I was very interested in a project that could make such an environmental difference but also impact people. And I think that people also see like the amount of opportunities both being in Enactus and being part of Taka Taka would give you. I think that maybe in university doing the work to sort of get the exposure alongside bigger sports teams and things like that is maybe a challenge. But I think that once you've got that exposure, it's very easy to recruit somebody. I don't know, Letty, do you agree?
Yeah, I do agree. I think, for example, we're doing a pitch in a week's time at one of the colleges in Durham, and we're going to talk all about the World Cup and talk all about the project. And I think that sort of thing is really beneficial. Just like Freya says, there's so much going on at university. I think it's people are interested once they know, but it's just a case of making sure everyone knows about it.
Did you enjoy the World Cup?
Yeah, I had an amazing time.
Yeah, it was actually my first time there. Letty was in Utrecht as well, but yeah, it was incredible to be able to see. I think it's just amazing to be able to see that many students and be able to see sort of the impact you're making. Yeah, it was just really fun. And I think also in terms of sort of the actual presenting and pitch itself was a great experience, and especially the Q&A bit. I think to be put on the spot like that, yeah, is really unique, and it was a challenge, but interesting.
Did any question like came as a surprise, unexpected in any way?
I'm now desperately trying to recall all of our World Cup questions. I think we'd pitched to a few people before, like had a few ideas of questions that could come up. So I think there was nothing too shocking from the World Cup ones. I
think at Nationals, we got a question about carbon credits, and that really, like, our finance officer answered that, and I really wouldn't have been able to, and I think that one quite like threw me quite a lot.
I remember in Utrecht, someone asked about the contamination, and then I don't know who answered. We don't know. We haven't checked, right? So I think the question was, is there any contamination? And then the answer was no, there's no contamination. And then they replied, have you tested the bread to prove it? And you said no. And then it was like, how can you be sure then? But you know, the fact that you went out and learned from that negative experience, and now you know the answer, right? You tested the bread, and it's a positive. So you didn't let a bump on the road bring you down. It was just, it's a bump. Move on.
I think we
amazing.
Definitely learned from that experience.
Yeah,
that was like we integrated the script into the queue. Like we had a prepared answer.
I think it's hard when we're working with like this technology that is quite hard to visualize or quite hard to necessarily communicate in a 12-minute pitch. And also I think for people to understand, although it's not our technology, we obviously have now worked with it for quite a few years and working close connection with the Community Cooker Foundation. So it is that challenge, I think, in terms of, we always say we incinerate the waste, we don't burn it, because we don't want it to be associated with just burning waste on the streets. Or, as Freya corrected me earlier in this, really emphasizing that there's no risk of contamination because it's so separate. Like there's bricks and metal in between our bread and our waste. The technology itself has been tested as safe to cook on.
The technology was tested by SGS, which is like a Swiss, they're a Swiss company that tests technology for sort of test emissions and things like that. And the Community Cooker did that work.
Okay, so I'm a student. I am around you at the same university, and I know about Taka Taka. Why should I join Taka Taka?
I think there's kind of two main reasons to join Taka Taka. I think there's the selfless of you're able to make such an incredible impact on individuals' lives, but also on a community, and help in making that impact. I think is a really rare opportunity, especially so young, at kind of 20, to be able to truly say, oh, I've helped transform this dump site into a place where now children can be safe. I think that's incredible. I think there's also the selfish reasons of, I think I've learned so much through Enactus and through Taka Taka. I've grown in confidence so much. I've had opportunities like being able to pitch, going to nationals, going to the World Cup. And so I think that is also an amazing reason to join. So I think the combination of it is just the best.
And what kind of people are you looking for? Because one thing is what you are offering, right? But what should that person offer you? Who is the best fit?
off the top of my head, I can sort of think of three main skills, but I think it's also important to say that we're still very young and Taka Taka can be an opportunity to develop those skills. Like, I don't think we're necessarily looking for somebody that like 100% ticks all of the boxes straight away, because I think that's unrealistic. But I think communication is a big one. Firstly, like sort of domestically and within the team here, and within sort of Rachel, who's our like advisor with Enactus, and also with Amy, and then also massively transnationally, because you have to have so many phone calls across the world and you might not have met these people before, and you really have to be careful on like communication and fostering trust. So I think that's definitely a big one. And then sort of being innovative and thinking of different solutions to different problems, and sort of being willing to be patient within that as well, like realizing that it's not going to happen straight away. Quite often we have ideas and then you have to go backwards 5 steps and then you go another 2 steps forward. And then also I think that leadership is also quite important. I think that there are times where you really have to be confident with your decisions, and sort of again both sides, being confident in what you believe and what actions you want to take when communicating with the Durham team, but also again when you're communicating with the Kenyan team.
Okay, now you're leaving university. What is next for you in your professional careers? What are you two thinking of? What's the path?
Letty, do you want to go first because you're more sure than I am?
I think so. I do a geography BSc, and I definitely want to go into kind of environmental sustainability, conservation, in some capacity. Huge idea. Currently, which capacity I'm a bit unsure. I'm taking a year out after university, and I think I'm going to try and get some work experience in the private sector and also in NGOs, just to see. I definitely have been advised through people I've talked to that it's a very different feel and fit. So I want to try and get experience before I kind of set a path on one of them. But I think that's a general, definitely want to stay in sustainability. I think it's such a exciting place to be. I think it's growing as it should be. And I also think it's something I feel really passionately about, and I want to do a job that I kind of wake up and care about.
So I do anthropology BA, so I'm very interested in sort of the people side of both Taka Taka and life. So I think I'm mostly interested in working in international development or humanitarian aid. I've recently learned that's a very difficult sector to break into as an undergraduate. So yeah, I'm at the moment sort of looking for policy and project development sort of graduate schemes and jobs, so that I can sort of work more on those skills, and then hopefully in a few years' time I'll be a better candidate for breaking into international development. So yeah, we'll see how that goes, but that's definitely something that I'm really interested in.
Well, I would say try to get there as early as you can. You know, maybe do some work for peanuts or for free, just to get the experience, you know. Which is exactly why you are doing for Enactus, right? You are doing work for free, but it's something that you love. It's giving you an extra skill and experience that the average student doesn't have. You are really a step ahead. I don't remember the thousands, but students who have gone through the Enactus program are 8,000% more likely to be employed than who hasn't. Some ridiculous number, I don't remember. And I think that is exactly because you have been an entrepreneur and you have been surrounded by senior business leaders who have advised you and you have listened, you know. And one thing I always mention to others is the ability that the students in the Enactus network have to listen. You take advice in a way that's unique. I went to universities and I spoke to students, and whilst I was speaking there, they were on their phone, they were chatting to their colleague, you know, not paying really attention. Maybe they went there just for the pizza. Yeah. But I can have 1,000 students. I had this experience from Enactus in front of me, and I'm talking to them, and they are all attentive. They are there, they are taking notes, they want to engage, and they come to talk to me afterwards. They say, oh, that was nice what you said, and I'd like to learn more. So there is a quality that is now part of you, and I think you are definitely on the right track. And the experiences that you have made both with Enactus National and the World Cup are unique, and I'm sure you have a brilliant future.
Thank you.
Fingers crossed.
So happy for you, really am. Yeah. Thank you very much. Do you have any questions for me? Would you like to ask
What's
me?
your favorite thing about Enactus?
My favorite thing about Enactus? Ooh. I like how much I develop whilst I am in Enactus. It is great, all the work that I do with the students and inspiring the next generation, going around, traveling, meeting new people, leaders, maybe country leaders, like the government, from Kazakhstan. That's all exciting. But I think how much I've grown in the past couple of years working with Enactus, that's what I like the most, is how much we as leaders also develop. I learned a lot of communication skills by observing the other board members, for example. Amy is a superstar. I had my startups before, but I've never been on a board, of a big company. And there were some skills that I had to acquire there. There's a sort of an etiquette that I quite quickly understood that there was that etiquette there, but I didn't know about it. Yeah, it's been very interesting, and my personal development is what I like the most, honestly. But I'm not here because of that. I'm here because one day I will die, and at the last minute, I want to be able to look back and say, God, look at that, look at all that great stuff that I did. I helped so many students, and the company Bentley, is also getting better because of the relationship that we have with Enactus. We bring in students in. We are proving that our software can help saving the planet and making the planet a better place. And so it's great to see that side as well. Yeah, so I'm happy. That was a good question. All right, listen, I wish you all the best in your future careers. Congratulations for the amazing project, Taka Taka Zero.
Great.
Thank you.
Yeah, you are welcome. Thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
To learn more about Taka Taka Zero and their impactful work, visit takatakazero.org. If you'd like to support Taka Taka Zero, you can make a donation of any amount to Enactus Durham using the following details. Sort code 202766, account number 33555224, reference Taka Taka Zero.